Well, activity relating to the recapitalization of rescue banks should step up a notch. As early as this week, possibly, we gather that over the next 1 month, we should be hearing about memorandum of understanding between 6 rescued banks and potential investors. Joining us in the studio to give us his views and his thoughts on the process, more so because shareholders are a key party to the closure of these transactions, is Boniface Okezie, who is Chairman of Progressive Shareholders of Nigeria. I beg your pardon. Thanks a lot, Boniface, for coming on to the show.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Right, let's start with the MOUs. First of all, what are your thoughts about MOUs between possible investors into Nigerian banks? I know that you're very passionate about the whole process and the legality of the process, but now that we're at this stage, what are your thoughts?
Well, fortunately, shareholders in Nigeria, the minorities, have not been carried along in all this process. We have just reading it like you on pages of newspapers. The MOU is going to be signed precisely tomorrow. I have been heard, some bank will sign tomorrow or thereabout. That means, the real business have been commenced. That's my understanding. You have signed a memorandum of understanding with the so-called investors who are coming in various banks. About 6 banks rescued. I don't know whether it's 8 or 10 banks. If they come in, they will now have to put the card on the table with the board representing shareholders. To some extent, those boards have become weaker because CBN have absorbed their powers of those board of directors, which ordinarily in the normal course of business, where there's transparency, good corporate governance, they represent minorities. But because CBN have taken over those banks to run them, so those boards now become powerless. Because the management appointed by the CBN to run those banks have more power than the board. So that's the fear of the minorities. So if you're not coming to a certain understanding, all along, those things have been put in secrecy. Nobody knows what's going on. The entire stakeholder are put under the dark. It's only CBN knows who is coming in and who is not taking or what are you taking. Ordinarily, CBN is a regulator, but they are involved for day one, knowing who's coming in, either their friends or cronies, we don't know. So CBN knows everyone, who's coming in.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, CBN as a regulator, we're able to, those boards will pack to them to give approval. But that's not the case. So we are waiting. Sign the MOU, and commence the real business, involve the stakeholders. That means you call AGM or EGM to give resolutions. How much percentage do you allot to those shares?
Well, of course, like you mentioned, there has to be a general meeting of shareholders to approve any deal.
Of course.
But, I hear the protest about the legality of the process and so forth. But then, many people say that looking at where the rescue banks are right now, really, is there a need to make so much noise? Because these banks are, like someone says, on life support because we know that they've had to be recapitalized. Their shareholders' funds have been totally eroded. Even after the injection of capital by AMCON, some of them might still have negative equity. So
that's what I've been told.
Well, at the end of the day, that seems to be the reality. If you want the CBN to back off and so forth, at the end of the day, the CBN would use its powers
and liquidate the banks?
Yeah, there will really be no choice, really.
Well, let me frankly answer that question. CBN cannot liquidate those banks because a sign of syndrome of our distress have not come into those systems. CBN injected money like life support, whatever you call it. And that will last a period of 7 years as a loan, which is interest payable. It's serviceable by 11%. CBN collect on those money.
What if the CBN withdraws that money?
On those money. So basically, there are a lot of recovery have been made, okay, from the non-performing loans. The customers are now being forced to pay those money. Some of them have collected huge sums. Even the one EFCC helped to recover. But we have not been told up till now how much is totally have been collected or how much is left uncollected, which income now is taken on heavily discounted non-performing assets, TOSIS. Okay. ANCOM is mopping up, So if ANCOM have taken those problems from those banks, ANCOM is going to make a huge amount of money profit from it, So with the money CBN claimed to injected, should allow those banks to stabilize. The problem they will have at hand, that they will not be able to lend heavily to their customers who want to borrow money to do their business. Because the real sectors today is suffering as a result of reform going on. Even the healthy banks are not lending. That's the truth. of the matter. Today, we're talking of interest rate crashing to almost 1% on savings. And, on savings. I don't know how they fee deposit, how much interest. But if you now want to borrow, or CMBs want to borrow in a bank, you pay almost 30% interest rate. But the banks are collecting cheap fund, and they are not lending. Is there another way to scare away potential borrowers from the bank? Okay. And that's why the researchers are suffering.
Well, let's come back to the issue at hand. We know that there's going to be a shareholders meeting definitely before any deal can be done. And the expectation, obviously, is with AMCON's injection of capital, AMCON injection of equity, possibly, and then, of course, there is the new investor coming on board. There's obviously going to be a risk of serious dilution to the current shareholders. Some are even saying as much as 20% might be left out of the total entity for shareholders.
Yes, shareholders.
How would you react to that in that scenario?
So that's what I'm saying, that, if CBN, if it doesn't have ultra motive behind the so-called reform, you injected this money that will last to 7 years. Like I said earlier, the bank will not be seriously lending money. That will be the handicap. But it should allow them to stabilize. And the hint on them, there's need for them to show for core investors or institutional investors that will invest in those banks and bring the needed fund for them to do big business as a bank. That's what it's called for, So if CBN have allowed the bank to stabilize in the next 3 years and withdraw his appointees, who are now worsening the situation of those banks, creating more problem that they are coming to solve. That's the problem the bank is experiencing. Because if you bring professionals to run those banks, I tell you, within 3 years, this bank will fully recover. And recover whatever you say non-performing. Because today, those loans are performing and they're getting the money. Well, but those CBN appointed are ruining the bank, are creating more problem. Because investors, they are sitting because they know a core investor is coming. Okay. And that's why everybody, they are hurried to sell off so that they will continue to enjoy the loot they are making now from the banks.
Okay, we have to have serious allegations there, but I'm sure...
It's not serious allegation. That's the truth.
Well, you would
because some of them, CBN have investigated them, and up till now, Mr. Sweeper, who is cleaning the system, and he cannot release the audit report of CBN that went sent to some bank, audited their founding, allegation made. So, and they're not trying to sweep it under the carpet. And we are saying, no, since we're cleaning the system, let's clean once and for all. If those you appointed are doing worse than those we bring, let's prove them. I'll remove them.
I really have to stop now. We really have to stop now. Very passionate discussion there. Boniface Okezie for Progressive Shareholders Association giving us his thoughts.